put the little mount on it. Oh, now we're live. Hey, and
Hey,
everybody can
hey,
hear me
everybody.
complaining about the recorder. I can't see the screen.
Nobody type your password.
Right.
Phil did
Uh,
that once.
this is the live stream for the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you are looking for an edited version without all the mistakes and the ums and the uhs, then check out smlr.us, and that's where we post the edited show.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
And this is episode 264. Shutdown -R?
Government.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're flying blind here in America. We've accidentally shut down the government. Well, not accidentally, some purpose by the politicians in control that like to pretend they have control. I don't know.
Right.
It's all right. We're probably better off.
You know what's funny is they call it a government shutdown. The government doesn't shut down. It's all the non-essential stuff that's
Yeah,
shut down.
it's also your pay gets furloughed, and to describe that, because I have numerous friends that work for the government, including places like Homeland Security, where they may not quit their jobs. He has to go to work and he doesn't get paid. This happened last time this happened, so he gets paid later. They just hold all your checks and they don't give them to you.
Such is the life of a lowly governmental system administrator.
Yeah.
Right.
So, he's actually undercover Homeland Security, so does big project management stuff, high level investigations. He has interesting stories that he can't share.
Very cool.
And why does he hang out with Tom? Because I love his answer for this. He goes, because if I hang out with all the other cops, I'm bitter about life. You know, whatever tech support problem you have, Tom, does not compare to the things I can't speak of that I seen today. And I thought that was a wonderful answer. He says, if you like fall into this bitterness of hanging out with other people in your industry, when you do things like work child cases, like child trafficking cases, one of his jobs for a while, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. How bad was your day when you had to answer a tech support problem from someone dumb? Let's talk about that, because I'm laughing going, you think that's rough. So yeah, but it happens in America. This is a strategy by which the politicians use to try to fix the budget that they'll never really fix. They'll just patch it up and do some stuff. So let's talk about Linux, because it's way more interesting.
Yeah.
Because Linux politics is way more fun.
Here, here.
So Phil, I heard you had a few projects going.
Yes. I've got an update on the SMLR statistics that I talked about last show. I've got a working script. It's up on my GitHub page, github.com/pgparada/shell. And then we can get all of our stats from archive.org. A script parses it. It's really a big awk and said contraption.
Yeah.
And then it outputs an SVG that I open up with GNU plot. GNU plots an SVG file, and then we can see the stats for our show. I thought it was pretty nifty. We'll display it somewhere on our website shortly, but one step at a time.
What's the script is called SMLR podcast stats.sh.
Yes, you have to have working archive.org credentials, though. I don't know if you can be just
I'm
a
not-
user.
I'm not signed in to see it. You mean to see it? To view it?
To run the stats yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you can sign up for a free account and to do it and get the
Okay.
yeah. So
I've been using the show's account, so
that's fine.
works for me. The code works on my side.
It's funny if you read through it. There's one section for you're using sed to figure out what the name of the podcast file is, and it goes all over the place because just over the years that we've called what the different shows are, and so there's SMLR space E space, then the show name, and there's SMLR space E the show name, and then SMLR dash episode space the show name, and that's funny.
The cleanup is the most fun part. Any chance I get that I can use set and awk in a script, that's my jam, so to speak.
Well, it's also your license plate. So
Yeah, yes, it is.
That's awesome.
that's a cool project. So if you have something on archive.org where you're just curious about how frequently something is accessed, this script could apply to that too. Just modify what it pulls.
Yes, exactly.
It's open source. You have all the code.
I think I put a GPL version 2 license on it.
That's important.
What does it use? Is it just screen scraping or?
It's using a Python 3 tool called IA-mine. Let me see who makes that really quick. But
Oh,
then
yeah,
it outputs
IA-mine,
just
yeah.
a big blob of JSON data, and there's a tool called JQ, which can parse a blob of JSON data just like SED can on regular text.
Hmm.
But I have examples in the script of actually using it. So if you want to check it out, you can take a look there.
Yeah, it looks good. Cool, thanks.
Another project that I've got going since that one's finished. My grandpa is 80 plus years old. Walks with a cane, has a hunch in his back, shaky hands. You have to say things a couple times before he hears it. He calls me up and says, "Philip, I want to learn how to use the internet." Now, as a substantially younger guy, this is a daunting task because how do you bridge the gap of like the older generation and using a point and click device? How do you teach the concept of double clicking to an older person? So that's the struggle I'm running into now. Really, he wants to listen to the news and see pictures and hear music. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I can do this with a Raspberry Pi, install Kodi on it or something like that, hack up the GUI so he can use his TV remote to pick news, music, or pictures. And then behind the scenes, scripting magic will happen to give my grandpa what he wants through an interface, the TV remote, that he knows how to interact with. So I'm working on that. Should be ready by this afternoon, according to him. But testing takes time.
You know what I would have thought of also. Raspberry Pi is cool, and probably the UI, like whatever you get. Kodi is a good one. I'm not sure if you can do the same thing with it, but I have an Android box, and that plugs into the TV, and you get a remote with it.
Okay.
And I think I paid $90 for it because it was one of the more high end little Android boxes of the cheap section, because I wasn't going to pay like $200 for one.
Oh, that might be a good solution
But-
too, though, is it does have apps, and the apps are generally touch friendly, and you're just migrating to a TV situation.
Yeah, so if he says he wants to view pictures, but he actually wants to do is keep up with family on Facebook, then you just load on the Facebook app. And
then you have to teach an 80 plus year old about Facebook and logging in.
no, but if it's on Android, you log in once, so you log in for him.
That's true. That does sound like a pretty good plan.
Yeah, and then
I've got an old phone lying around. What kind of hardware do you need?
Well, it has HDMI out, the one that Tony has, so it hooks right up to a television.
Yeah,
Okay.
and literally it's a box. Like
Yeah.
there's no screen on it. It plugs HDMI to the TV.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
it runs Android.
And then and so the one I have is a year old now, so you could probably get it for $60, I bet, on Amazon.
I've got an older Intel compute stick. I don't know
That
if
might
you guys
work.
have used those,
Yeah.
but they run x86 code, I think. So
Yes.
you can do quite a bit more with them.
That might be
Yeah.
an option too. There's some lightweight interface on there that gets to the places he needs to go, and then some type of remote script so Phil can move it to the place that he thought he wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah. But that's the projects I've got going on now. How about you, Tom? What you got?
Oh, so I just did a series of videos on I did Snort and the lighting project that we got here. So I have a few more YouTube videos up. That's been kind of fun.
I know that the listeners can't see behind us, but this lighting project, this is very, very cool.
Actually, it is getting caught on the camera. You can see they can see the very edge of this end over
Yeah.
here.
So that's why we're glowing. I also ranted about the massive changes that YouTube has made, which has been good. They're very positive, even though people are losing their minds over them. So there's that. Basically, they're raising the bar for what it takes to monetize a YouTube channel, and people are very upset by this. But the other side of it is we're getting rid of all the crap content. Is the goal. So and the plagiarism. I have not, since they've made some of these changes, I have not seen plagiarism on my channel lately. So that was a annoyance by Tom. People find videos that somebody just takes my title, my thumbnail, my video, and just duplicates it. And then it splits up the views because people don't know. They see the same title and it's me. So they just watch the video and they get all the, ad revenue and things like that from it. So YouTube has stopped a lot of that.
Here. That must
Yeah.
have been super frustrating.
You have to file the report that you were the original person, and then it goes through a process. Well, especially if it's a popular video, that videos are popular over time and kind of fall off popularity, they're getting all the views and you're getting all the views at the same time, even though you're the originator of the video. One of them had more views than me. I don't know what the sauce was there. I think it's because they had ripped off so many different YouTubers. I'm just among the victims, and so that's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Other than that, completing lots of little projects have been kind of fun. And one of them was the blacklisting for DNS. I did that and tweeted it out. So it's a Pfsense. I did a video on the Pi hole. If you're not familiar with the Pi hole, it's a DNS black hole that runs on a Raspberry Pi.
Fantastic project.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love the interface for it. And but I run that in Pfsense, but not the Pi hole. You don't get the fancy interface. So I tested both and did a review of both things individually. They're basically, because if you're using the same lists, you're getting the same thing, but you get a fancier interface with Pi hole. Well, when I tweeted it out, the developer for PF Blacker NG reached out to me and let me know what he's working on. And this is really cool. I just was unaware. And so I donated to his project and encourage others to do the same. He's putting all that interface that you see with the Pi hole and a whole lot more features that are coming to the Pfsense version.
Oh, that is
Awesome.
going to be amazing.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I went ahead and subscribed with Patreon so we can have recurring donations to them. And I like the project. It's actually something that we use for our clients. We, black hole things, especially like malware sites and stuff like that. So there's some real good use cases. And some companies go a step further and will do things like, okay, go ahead and get rid of all social media sites because they're not productive for work.
I hear you. When I set up Pi-hole, it was right before my wife and I got married. So we were going through all the researching places to researching venues, researching bands, food, everything that goes into wedding planning. And let me tell you, there are so many ads. So my wife has a Facebook comment that says, doing wedding research is so much easier after installing Pi-hole that it's amazing. You would
Wow.
get so many pop-ups.
Yeah, and I don't mind the ads. I think Google has done a great favor to us, showing that you can have an ad system that is less intrusive, and that's great. But all these other companies, like you said, they have these overlay ads, these auto playing videos. It's just a crazy menage of nastiness that's on my screen. I'm like, I just trying to get to the article. I get it. There's an ad, and I even click on some of the ads, especially when they're good deals. Like I like the Amazon ads; they give me deals. So I see things on 15% off through retargeting. Those are ads that are good. They're effective. They make me buy something. But all this other crap that pops up is just mind numbing and
Right.
distracting. So while I understand the need to make money via ad revenue, as I do myself through my YouTube, I also see that there's going too far with it. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I'm happy to see that project getting some more love and updates. And which is also why I did the Snort one. They added Open App ID to Snort inside Pfsense, so it can identify applications through the traffic.
Very cool. I think you were telling me something about Snort exporting to an elk stack.
Yes, I've seen some people demo that. And that's another project I want to get going. I want to put that together and put a good tutorials. I haven't found a good tutorial on it. I've seen a lot of people write a lot of stuff, and I think between me and Phil mentioned he has some experience with it. So I'll see how far I can get before I get stuck. Before I need a said awk master.
I've always deployed it with configuration management. Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Salt. You take your pick. I've probably deployed it like that. Um, there's other people who like to go the super easy route and turn on a set of Docker containers. That's an option. Um, I like to build it myself, uh, so that way I know how to control all the little bits of software and config files. Um, it's a fun nerd out for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last project is we're winding up and completing the migration of our hosting platform to a new company because, and once I'm done, I'm going to call out the old company. I called them out on Twitter. It was the only way I can get them to respond to tickets. That's why I'm switching. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. But on a plus note, all of our customers now get free Let's Encrypt certificates.
Here.
Yeah.
So that's been a big bonus. We've been migrating everyone over to that because once we move their website over, it's just an enable. After it takes about 2 hours after we move their website that it'll allow us to install the cert, and it's all automatically installed. Thanks A2 Hosting for being able to do that. It's a service they offered. Like it doesn't cost extra or anything.
Yeah. I've been using A2 hosting for about 4 years, and I really like them. You know, they're local to us. They're in Ann Arbor,
Yeah, that's a bonus as well.
and it's a good price, good deal. And I didn't realize they did the Let's Encrypt cert by default.
Oh, okay.
So I think what it is, if you have older domains, it didn't do it. So I had to put in a ticket, and then they went through and retro did it just to all of my.
I'm
domains,
also
but-
not just hosting individual websites. I am a reseller, so I have a big package I buy with them and then divvy it up. So I got server space I buy. So
Sure,
I'm
sweet.
doing a little bit differently maybe than an individual person hosting, but I think it's something they offer even on individual hosting plans.
Yeah, they do, and that's like shared hosting. That's what I have, and actually, that's what SMLR.us is on. It's on their servers. So sweet.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Other than, let's see, we got LED lights, we got that. Oh, when I talked about before, I launched my LTS creative company, so we're doing social media marketing for companies and websites, and so that's going on. But I'm a little bit less involved in it because I have people out here to be involved in it. So that's making me happy.
Yeah. All right, and the thing I'm working on, or at least what I did work on, and I finally got it finished up, is I have my open no FreeNAS is what I have.
Oh.
For my I've been running it for I don't know 4 months now, and I run VMs in it in the
How's Beehive?
Beehive. Yep, it's all right. So the tricky thing is the booting. It uses EFI booting. So if you're not used to it, then you have to make sure, like if you import in or bring in VMs to it, then you have to do some trickiness to get it to boot with the EFI. Otherwise, if you do a fresh install of more modern, anything from like 16.0
Yeah.
and newer, then just works fine with an install.
So I've done exploring of Overt. I've done the Beehive one on FreeNAS, and I've even played with Proxmox. And as much as those are all cool open source projects, all of them have the same problem: is they can't just move VMs in and out to other platforms. Only ones that do it is then in VirtualBox and that are in the open source frame. I can just import an OVA, export an OVA, and move it to another platform. I don't know why that's not like a priority for some of these other open source projects. Like they have like long instructions of how to get a VM that you have existing that's completely the way you configured I want. I just want to import it. Well, here's your hoops you have to jump through. And I'm always like, what? You you're reiterating the same thing that they still haven't really solved that.
Right. And so the way I got around that is I create an image of the system, with using Clonezilla, or I think I use Parted Magic. And then when I booted a new VM and then just said, reimage the drive with that image that I had created, just as if you're moving it from one server to a new, physical servers.
Yeah.
And then it was working. Other than the boot problem.
Well, I think example, like one of the things I kick off every Sunday morning is the backups of all of my VMs. They all shut down. They all exported as OVA files, and they're all copied to a Lux encrypted hard drive and taken back home. I have a complete copy of every one of them, and I can restore it either in another Zen server or in a VirtualBox server just by importing and say yes, and I'm back up and running. Like I want that fluidity. The people at ESX VMware are used to that. Zen does it. Come on, Proxmox, come on, like make an import export. VirtualBox has it, but you can't really, it doesn't really run the same way. So,
right.
Anyways,
so the problem I had this week was I did the upgrade of FreeNAS
to
11.1, and they enabled a feature that it caused problems for me, and I want to let everybody know about this so that if you go through the same process, you know what's going on. So when I booted an older, I had some 1404 Ubuntu servers running, and when I booted it, it just all of a sudden had no network. It's like if I did ifconfig, it had a loopback, but it had no Ethernet. And I, I first noticed it because the server wasn't online. But I go to look at the VM, and the VM's running. And after rebooting a few times, and then I figured out through dmessage, you can figure out that the Ethernet is being renamed from ETH0 to whatever number.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So it was getting renamed every time it rebooted. It got renamed to something different.
What?
So ETH0 to ETH1, and then the next time I rebooted was ETH0 to ETH2, and then ETH2 to ETH3, 4. And by the time I hit ETH10, I figured out what I was doing. So if you didn't realize, that's after 10 reboots and hours of messing around with it, that it was getting renamed each time because it's getting a different MAC address. So instead of giving it a MAC address and leaving it with that, it was giving it a random MAC address every time it rebooted. And that's a problem for the older Ubuntu's.
Yeah.
And it was a problem because I use DNS or DHCP reservations. So instead of configuring the machine with the IP address, I configured my DNS server with it, and it just gives the same address all the time. So all you have to do is so what they did is the feature is now you can set the MAC address.
He put that in air quotes.
The feature, right? The feature is you can set the MAC address. Except for if you don't set the MAC address, it's a random one every time it reboots.
That's wrong.
Yeah. So all I had to do is copy the MAC address it should have, stick it into the Beehive, not Beehive, but the FreeNAS configuration for the network card, and then it rebooted and it was working and it worked. It was just perfect.
So prior to starting the show, I was mentioning I talked to, like, verbally, because they call me the FreeNAS people. So this is getting brought up because I hadn't heard it.
I was trying to figure out how to write up an article or something about that.
I am going to play with it. A lot of people ask me about it, so I may play with that just to see that feature. That's interesting that it does that. That's certainly problematic.
Yeah.
On a positive note, have you played in 11.1 with the cloud connections?
I have not.
It works great. You
Really?
can just set a timer and say, and I used a Backblaze connection because they give you, 10 gigs free to test with. And so I'd sign up for an account real quick. You create a bucket, and it'll work with AWS buckets, Azure buckets. It'll work with Backblaze, of course. And you just put your bucket ID, drop it in there, and say, back this folder up to the cloud. And it just, okay. And you set the schedule by which you want to do it. Now, this is the part they didn't have in the documentation that I have to do a video about. They just haven't gotten around documenting it. So it uses the protocol of each company. Because I was trying to figure out if it rsynced, because it actually syncs. You can tell it to push or pull or sync. So it's got 3 options when you set it. I was assuming maybe it used rsync. I didn't realize the scalability problems of rsync. So I had a great discussion with them of why they can't use rsync and why using each company's protocol. AWS has a protocol, Backblaze, Azure, each one has their own protocol, and they integrated their protocol stacks into the syncing process, and why it works really well. And we're looking at it as an easy solution to back up tons of data on an easy basis that's already on a FreeNAS box and go, oh, that should be duplicated somewhere in the cloud, not just locally. So I'm looking at putting in some projects. The downside is it does not have any options for encrypting it before sending. So if you put it into a folder, you're worried about buckets because someone could see them. And you want to encrypt it beforehand. They haven't built a facility in that, so I'm going to put some scripts together to do that, because there's methods by which you can do it.
Yes.
Nice.
To secure Amazon S3 buckets, I like to use the AWS CLI command line tool. You can do everything through that tool that you can through the Amazon console, especially auditing your policies, your roles, all of that.
I was actually thinking to go a step further is basically I have data on here is encrypting it before send. So they trust no one encryption, where you keep a local key with like whatever tool you're using and you encrypt it. You have a local key and they're only backing up the encrypted blobs.
Absolutely.
So that's a great way, because then you're never worried about if you accidentally screw up and let people publicly have it. You're like, well, it's all encrypted. So
one that does do the encryption and backing up to the cloud? You guys know of the
Tarsnap.
Tarsnap.
Yep.
there's a Tarsnap plugin for FreeNAS.
Yep, I was going to test this Tarsnap plugin to have Tarsnap land in a directory and then back it up to the cloud. That's actually what I was going to put together as a tutorial, I think, because I know they have a plugin for it. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. It does look cool. That's I'm actually now thinking about I want to do that now.
Yeah. I all my backups, even though they're going local from my office to my house, like our hourly backups or databases, they're encrypted before they even leave each database server. I encrypt them and then send them to the landing spots, even though they're locked down private, not public, but I feel better.
Yes, and then you can also encrypt your storage medium.
Yep, that is too.
So you get those extra layers of the security onion.
Yes.
For an Amazon bucket, you can check to make sure that your bucket has a specific, it's called a KMS key inside of Amazon, so that you know your bucket is encrypted.
Yes.
And then your script could also check that if it's not, well, hey, warn the person and don't store my data there.
Yeah. I did a video on this too, and if you're not familiar with it, is the way the GELI keys work with FreeBSD and FreeNAS. I encrypt all of my hard drives. That way, if we ever have one go bad and I got to send it back, it's a shrug of the shoulder going, well, it's all gibberish on there. And I take them a step further because I have the key and a passphrase. So every time any of my FreeNAS servers get rebooted, you have to type a passphrase in to decipher the drives. That way, if someone physically took the box, they can't just boot it up.
Back in my data center days, it was always fun, also in air quotes, to push up the terminal crash cart to go have to type in someone's root password to unlock a server.
Yeah.
Wow.
That happens. That's why my servers, I have them set to boot, and then I have Lux installed for the data drive that gets attached. So I run my VMs with 2 drives on them. The data is on an encrypted Lux. That way they actually will boot, and I can remote into them and then unlock the data via Lux.
So I used to work in a tech shop, kind of like yours here,
Yeah.
Tom. Where there's like 4 or 5 guys working here, and my boss would let me host my own server out of here and give me one of the public IPs. Well, one of the guys that I worked with, when I was out on site, he liked to mess with my server. So he was trying to mess with something, and he went to reboot it, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't boot back up, and he was like freaking out and couldn't figure it out. And what I had done is instead of installing the boot manager to the hard drive, I installed it to a floppy. And so you could tell this was years ago. So, and at that time it was Lilo, not Grub. So I installed it to the floppy, and it wouldn't boot. And what I did is so that like if I was there and I knew this was a problem, I just put it up in one of the ceiling tiles right above the server. But he didn't know this, and he was like freaking out. And when he left, my boss knew where that floppy was, so he grabbed it and booted it back up for me. But it was funny.
I guess I've never really done this. Is there can you set Linux to boot with something like a secure key in it? Is there like what is those keys called, like the UV keys, where it looks and checks for a physical presence of a key before it boots?
Oh,
That's a good question.
I've
I don't know.
Yeah, that might be kind of interesting. Like it'd be like for my laptop, I pull the UV key out and it no longer boots. I know they have them for like some of the login stuff, but I know it started at the boot level.
when you do full disk encryption, you can require a password, but I don't know about a physical key.
Because password plus physical key.
You could put the boot manager on that USB drive, and then it just won't boot unless you put that USB in.
Yeah, that's another option.
Hmm.
How many layers of tinfoil am I going to wear?
Right.
Never enough, right, Phil?
Never enough. I've stumbled onto the page for Linux-Lux-TPM-boot.
Ooh,
So Lux TPM boot.
that's
from
actually
this.
kind of neat.
Yeah.
Because then the hard drive wouldn't be able to remove because you would lose a trusted platform module. That would be cool.
Yes.
Hopefully you've backed up though, because I will throw that out there. You're not pulling the drive out to recover it in another computer ever.
Right.
Well, unless it was encrypted with that predictable, what's that module name that got in a bunch of TPMs with the predictable key?
Oh,
yeah, we talked about that last time. That was bad. Oh well.
Well, although that's still what 41 Amazon hours of
no,
hashing.
There's an update to that.
Oh, is
it's
there?
not anymore. Someone found out that they, of course, as we always get better, they found better ways to predict it. There's even less entropy than they thought, so they were able to do it in less time. There was a follow up to it. It's getting replaced a lot, so it didn't make the news the second round. But security researchers looked and go, well, we thought it was predictable. They were right, but it's even more predictable than the original researchers thought. And I remember reading the article, I was kind of laughing about it.
Right.
Someone found out it produces it under this certain circumstance, these many fewer patterns, so you could actually cut the time almost in half, is what they said,
Wow.
which is even scarier.
All right. We should probably move on.
We should move on, or we'll
I
just
think-
babble.
Yeah. If you haven't noticed, Mary isn't here today.
She usually is the one that like makes this motion of you should move on.
Yeah, she's the one that keeps us moving. But she has a cold, so she said her voice isn't up to it. Although mine's not all that great today either.
Get better soon, Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
She'll be back with us soon.
All right, let's move on.
We want to hear from you. Call 734-258-7009 or email show@smlr.us with your feedback and questions.
So moving on to feedback. We did get a couple of emails this by week. We have one that Michael was looking for a Linux solution. And I thought he had sent it to the show. So I was busy for a few days and didn't respond. But he's a student and he was looking to get some physical books into PDF so he could read it in a better way. So he was trying to do some scanning or taking pictures of it, but then it wouldn't be like OCR'd to be able to copy text.
Yeah.
And he went back and forth, and then a few days later he emailed me back saying that he figured it out and he's using what is it? I can't see his email right now, but it's a PDF reader that I've used in the past. It's a free, really popular PDF reader, writer, whole suite.
Cute PDF or
No,
There was a package
PDF
of
Creator?
PDF TK. I know I've
Fox.
used
Foxit.
Oh, Foxit Reader.
Foxit. Okay.
Yes.
Foxit
Yeah.
PDF. Yeah. So he said he was able. I didn't know that would work on Linux. So
I just
that's
learned
why I
it
didn't
myself.
suggest it. Yeah.
Same here.
I don't really. I actually use the browser all the time just to look at the PDFs out of habit, and I don't. I gotta admit, I see less and less PDFs. I don't see as much anymore. Everything's just some type of text on the web. Rarely do I acquire things in PDF.
Or maybe he said he's using a Windows box and was trying to figure out how to use it in Linux. But anyway, so he said he's using Foxit.
I think it does have some features in there. Warning for Foxit, and I don't know if this is still true. At one time, they had bundled it with malware.
Was it one of the source code repositories hosted on SourceForge?
Yeah, that's probably it was probably hosted somewhere, and that the host bundled the malware out or the whatever adware with it. Because I know SourceForge did it. What CNET did it at one time.
Yeah, there was a
Download.com.
couple of these that happened in fairly quick succession.
Yeah, actually, we had the project lead for SourceForge on our show years ago, and he talked about that and how he was the guy that came in to clean that problem up.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name at the
I
top
don't know.
of my
I
head,
still,
but-
as I didn't realize it got cleaned up. I just quit trusting it. I won't download any Windows precompiled binaries from SourceForge because they just came with crap. That's yeah, it's a problem. In CNET, oh, I loathe that company. Them and Download.com. They're like the number. Well, I should say I like them because they put crap that makes us money.
Makes
They
you
come in.
money.
Yeah, they come in. But yeah, that's definitely a horrible source of revenue, but a very popular one.
Right. So the next email we got was from Kevin O'Brien. He says he uses KSnap for snap screen captures. I know we were talking about. I think Mary was talking about an update to screen captures for her latest version of KDE. And Kevin's been a long time KDE user. Ever since I met him almost 15 years ago, he's always been using KDE. And but Tom, you said you tried to set up KSnap.
Yeah,
didn't you?
I'm trying to remember what the
Or
error is
Snapshot.
now. But yeah, there's an error.
Yeah.
It wouldn't.
I don't know if it's not supported anymore, or is there a PPA or something you have to install to get it to work, or
Well,
maybe if they have a snap available, then K snapshot would work on snaps.
we can try to flat pack it as well.
Yeah.
What are the error messages? I forgot.
Anyway, we got another one about Sonos.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, actually, you did because you responded to it.
Oh, wait, I did.
He says,
oh,
"Hey,
yeah, it's working now. I'm sorry. Yes,
yeah, he's trying to listen to our podcast on Sonos,
and it's working.
and it started working. So he was wondering if we
Hey,
did anything
awesome.
different with the way we made.
I interpreted
files
it
and-
as a response to the podcast about it working. Now I thought it was a project about Sonos.
Oh,
Yes, I did respond to that one.
Yep. And
I
we
did
didn't make
nothing. I won't take credit for it.
yeah, we didn't make any changes. So
We're happy it's working
It's
though.
magic. Yeah.
Those are my favorite problems, the ones that solve themselves.
And that's all I see from there. I didn't log into the website to check to see if we had anything on the website.
I didn't see anything the other day when I logged in and uploaded it on Sunday.
Okay.
I didn't get an email about it.
Well, I seen spam.
Yeah, everybody should get an email. So I agree.
Yeah.
It didn't. So I guess we're moving on.
Distro Fever, where we cover the latest hot distro releases and news.
Distro Fever. We should. I know we have a soundbite for that. But I wonder if we can get like some disco music for that.
There we go.
Anyway, so I see Parted Magic is on the list with an update. I like Parted Magic because it's one boot with a bunch of tools. So it's not free as in free beer. You still have to pay, and at one time it was $5. I think it's 11 now. But it's a lot of really good tools, and it's a guy, he spends his time to set it up. So I think it's worth donating to him to get it working, to have it. Is there anything you guys saw that was interesting?
Pfsense, and I can't decipher what's going on, but Pfsense has an update, and people ask me about Pfsense versus Pfsense, and there is an entire subreddit dedicated to the drama that is between those developers. It is at a level of childishness that even went into a lawsuit. So it's crazy if you ever want to read it. I'm sticking with Pfsense, but yeah, they basically get into name calling fights.
Yeah.
That happens with some frequency. There was also drama for backup software that I've played with before. A project called Bacula, and it's split
Yeah.
into another project called BearOS or Barrios.
Yes.
One of those. And I had backed the BearOS horse. Turns out that project eventually died. But
So Bacula is just a backup package, right? The software.
Yes.
And somebody tried to make a whole Linux distro out of it, right? That's what you're saying?
um,
Or did they
just
fork it and
forked it.
oh,
That's kind of what the Pfsense did, and it's a fork. But then, if I'm not mistaken, and this is where it gets fuzzy, the people at Pfsense registered their domain, and eventually lost it, but hid that they registered it, and made an entire joke website about Pfsense. Like they didn't squat on it. No, they made an entire hysterical make fun of them website, and like the pettiness was far, and from my understanding from people who are neutral, of it's on both sides. So, but I'm still Pfsense seems to be a pretty solid support base, well rounded in security, because the arguments for Pfsense were, well, they're not updating the interface fast enough, and I'm like, no, I kind of like stability and slow, careful thought in my firewalls.
Yeah, same here. I remember just recently the Pfsense UI changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, no, if there's one thing I don't like, it's changing my firewall.
Yeah.
What's going on?
They're very because I speak with those developers as well, and they're really, really security conscious, very cautious on this, but they're also very big contributors back to a lot of code. So that's something I appreciate them. That you can trace back that they are an asset to the open source FreeBSD community, because that they had to do a lot of code contributes because they're moving a lot of their stuff to ARM now. They offer a lot of ARM devices because they're low wattage, high performance, and their whole next product line, some's released, and they gave me a little bit of a hint of some of the preview stuff they're going to be releasing is all ARM boxes that are really affordable and very fast and run FreeBSD and Pfsense. So that's something I don't think you can get with OpenSense. I think they're x86 only. FreeBSD has been a long-time supporter of ARM, but I think there was certain hangups of moving your firewall to ARM, and that's where the coders of Pfsense kind of said, all right, we're going to tackle this issue and make ARM boxes. So now you can actually have more affordable boxes because it's cheaper than some of the Intel ones. And also lower wattage. They're able to route something that might take 50 watts. I think you can do with 12 watts on ARM. And that scales. So yeah, you start having a lot of larger high performance ARM machines. There's still only a little bit more wattage versus that. And of course, wattage equals heat equals, we care about that in data centers.
Yeah, it'll pay for itself.
Yeah. Those are concerns at the scale that these data centers are operating at. So performance, speed, and heat, wattage, all those are carefully considered because you don't put one in. There's like 10 million instances of these things.
Right.
So, other stuff. What do we got here? Tails.
Yeah, Tails got an update.
Yes, I love Tails.
You know, it always makes me worried that if Tails gets an update, then there's something with the Onion router, you know, Tor that had some kind of update needed to be done.
Well, they fixed Meltdown, Spectre. There's a lot of little stuff that they're always adjusting, and they've had that problem. I follow their blog because I've done a couple of reviews on Tails. They have some issues with Firefox because they spin the update, but then Firefox comes up with a minor change that they really want to implement. So they kind of go through frequent update cycles because it's a static. You're not updating it as an OS because you're snapshotting and spinning up a ISO to download each time, and browsers update like on the regular. So they have a frequent release cycle because of that, because they have to respin the entire OS each time. I kind of wish they had an update facility, but then it goes around. What do they call that? It's a non-persistent system. It's called
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral. But they have another name. It's a type of Linux that it's based on. It's like a forgetting Linux, as they call it.
I think Amnesiac.
Amnesia, that's
Linux.
it. Yep, it's based on that. Matter
No,
of fact,
that is what Tails is.
Yes.
The Amnesiac Incognito Live System.
Yep, there we go.
Yep.
But because of that, there's not any way to. You're right, I should have read it. It's the first line.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, but I really like it as an OS. I use it whenever I have a shady website that I'm curious about. I keep it in a VM, which has its own risks. But you spin it up in a VM real quick, and I can check a website and feel comfortable that it's not tracked back to me in some. I mean, we know nation state actors. There's entire articles on that could track it under certain circumstances, but generally speaking, I'm not doing anything illegal. I just want to see if this URL will cause a virus or something like that. So we'll paste it into Tails just to see what happens.
Yep.
Same thing. I do that with a curl command as well.
Yeah, that too. Sometimes use a curl command, but I want to see it in Firefox and go, whoa.
Right.
There's another distribution called Unix.
Yes.
And it's touted as a high security method of surfing the internet.
Theirs is weird because Unix is a two-part system where one acts as server, one acts as client to get the access. I played with it. It's like, this seems clunky. I don't know. But I guess I understand the premise of separating one acts as a bridge to the Tor network and one acts as the part you work on. So one bridges you to Tor and then there's another computer behind it. It's been a while since I played with it, but I'm like, this is just a weird premise.
Yeah, because Tor already is it's supposed to be the separation. So it's like a
they go a
separation
step
from.
further.
Yeah.
Which, hey, like I said, how many layers of tinfoil does your hat need? All of
Adding
them.
several more on right
Why
now.
not?
You know, I bet you know how there's the project for PIA to be able to put it on FreeNAS. I wonder if there's a Tor version that you could put on FreeNAS.
You know, I have actually seen some firewalls do this. I think this is really cool. And I'm sorry, I can't remember which one because it was in here before. But one of the firewall distributions has an option. Instead of using a VPN, they actually will connect and bridge certain things so they can go through Tor. That I know of, there's no way to do it with Pfsense that I've seen. I've not even seen anyone try, but it's a cool concept. The downside is, and I've run into this a lot more playing with Tor, even when I do my demos, just so many websites block it now. Like, you can't go to a lot of websites. They go, you're using a Tor node that we've identified as a Tor node, you're blocked. Yeah. They just don't allow it because so many people use it for causing drama, putting bad comments on things and stuff like that, and general harassment of people. that they just block all the exit nodes for Tor. They're like, yeah, we see it's a Tor exit node. Sorry. That's been an aggravation whenever I do testing. So I'm always rebuilding the node to try and find one that's not blocked.
This is why we can't have nice things.
The trolls.
It's interesting. I googled the Tor on Pfsense,
Mhm.
and there's an article that was just updated 4 days ago
Well,
about doing that. So it looks pretty in depth. There's some packages to delete and install and update.
there's another worry I have. So people always ask me, why can't I just add this service? Like they want to run different things on top of it. Like one person wanted me to do a work instruction how to load the Java VM on top of Pfsense to run some of the Unify stuff. I'm like, you don't want to run that on your firewall. Like I don't recommend ever. I trust the Pfsense package maintainers, and I don't run anything that they don't approve because it's a firewall. I don't want to accidentally open up a port somewhere.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, even at that, there's a bunch of packages that Pfsense has available
Oh,
that
yeah.
I'd still like. I don't know why you would run that on there. Like a Samba server and
Oh yeah, yeah.
a
I know
bunch of little
those are
things like
weird.
that.
For some reason, you can run a Redis server on Pfsense. And I scanned my network and I was like, why is there a Redis server running on my firewall? What?
Right.
So scan your own networks. You'll find weird stuff.
Yeah, they have a lot of packages on there that one thing funny, there's a comment on there because about me talking about Snort, and the Pfsense people said just because you can run Snort and Serica at the same time, and it may work, is what they said. It won't work properly. Don't do this.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think I've got mine running Suricata, and I've got all the configuration for that.
that's my pain. I spent a lot of time tuning the rules to make Suricata work properly, and now that they've come up with like auto-tuned, nice, beautiful rules for Snort, and one of the things Suricata has this is the controversy going on as I read. Suricata has not been maintaining the packages, so they interpret the Snort rules coming from Talos quite as well because Cisco bought all the rules. Snort does a better job and does a better detection. Someone just did a review of it. They basically launched entire attacks against the firewall and showed that Suricata have less logs than that. They didn't do a diff, unfortunately, and I want to recreate what the person did in basic and a more in-depth one.
I just got another project. Switching over from Suricata to Snort.
Yeah.
Yes. Matter of fact, if you want to work together on any of that, I'm willing to build in my lab 2 separate Pfsense boxes, one with Suricata, one Snort, and you can then launch what is that tool, the Metasploit, against both of them and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's why I have a virtual lab.
Right.
Which one's identified better?
I started messing with Snort when I first set up my Pfsense, and I just turned everything on, and that breaks. It'll break.
It goes nuts.
Yeah. Well, no, it actually broke the internet. It stopped working. I'm like,
Well, if
I've
you
gotta
turn on
that
blocking,
off.
you'll break the internet for sure.
Right. And I have another friend that did a similar thing, and he said, "I don't get it. I'll go to Netflix, and I'll start watching something, and then a few minutes later, it'll just stop."
Yep.
And because it starts detecting something weird with Snort, and it starts blocking it.
Well, the problem many of these have is they can't see any encrypted traffic, so they use kind of a heuristic approach, which causes lots of false positives. And that is the challenge in running any IDS system, is figuring out the traffic.
Right.
So I will do the merry move and say I think we've covered all the OSs, and we'll move on to the news. We might do an entire topic on security and IDS. I don't think we shouldn't stop talking about it. I just think we should find a section where we just talk about it.
I agree. All right.
Agreed.
Tech news and views.
Tech news.
Oh, there's things. Who wants to start?
So,
Something that happened last week in certificate world, and also greater internet health, I guess. So the IETF creates specifications for which software and hardware is built and interpreted by engineers and programmers for implementation in the world. They make standards. So there was a standard that was evolving directly in front of my eyes, the Acme specification. There was a security, I guess, incident with several cloud hosting companies, and through through improper configuration of a server, um, I watched a specification get a portion of it removed. So I got to see the Acme spec change uh, on I guess like a daily basis. That was pretty cool. And I found a nifty tool called Data Tracker, um,
So,
datatracker.ietf.org.
oh, so they're changing a specification because somebody could possibly misconfigure their server?
Yes. So what had happened was there is this challenge in the Acme specification, automated certificate management environment, called TLS SNI. The other methods are HTTP and DNS. Now, a misconfigured uh, cloud provider system could give certificates for uh, anybody hosted on that server due to the way that the SNI server name indication works inside of uh, like HTTPD or IIS, that kind of thing. So the fix to that, the short-term fix, well, remove the TLS SNI challenge, and that's also done at the specification level, which I thought was really interesting to see how real-world documentation affects what we as programmers and system administrators have to deal with on a daily basis.
Well, I didn't read the entire write-up on it, but something interesting coming in TLS 1.3 is the way they're doing the key exchanges. It will break man in the middle, and Cisco has an entire write-up on why that's a problem, because they love to be man in the middle with their corporate firewalls, and so they're not sure what the solution is. But apparently, if you do end-to-end TLS 1.3, it's not in full spec yet, but it will break the. I think I have a link. I can put a link to the article because I covered it in when I did the reviews. People always ask me about doing Pfsense as a man in the middle system. And yeah, it's interesting to see how these specs are being shaped by our corporate company going, hey, wait a minute here. Our corporate boxes like to install certificates on everyone's computer. But even with that certificate install, because there's another layer that TLS 1.3 adds, Cisco can't see into the traffic because it creates those temporary three-way handshakes encryption. So it's encrypted, and then it's encrypted again for security, which is great for us, bad for man-in-the-middle boxes or government-mandated man-in-the-middle boxes.
So do either of you remember the Blue Coat boxes?
Mm-hmm.
I guess
we just decommissioned our last one at the hospital.
Okay, I guess they were bought by Symantec last year, 2 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think something we need to address that is internet hilarity at its finest, Hawaii.
Oh,
I saw some fantastic GIFs about that.
Did you see the actual though? And I'll link to what it actually looked like. I have that is at the top of my show notes. Is what the actual pull down looked like for the thing, and it says earthquake test, EAWRT test, hospital evacuation test, to SAMI test, and then is all the live templates are all this little pull down, and you just send it. It's absurdly. I know the internet made fun of all the ways it possibly could have looked, but that's why they released what it actually looked like, which isn't any better than the jokes we came up with the internet. It's as bad as we thought. And of course, if you can't not compound the problem, you do an interview with them at the station. And what do you think are on little yellow post-it notes taped invisible? Nice high definition.
Surely couldn't be passwords.
Yes, of course it's the passwords to
right,
all their
it's on
things.
that one.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, guys, we've had now 2 fails. We know you have poor UI design and you have bad security hygiene. Can we?
This is protecting our country.
I know. It's
That's the scary thought of this.
it's ridiculous. So there's no way we couldn't make at least a little comment on that and go, what?
Is that the same system that would send out like the Amber Alert? or is that a different?
I hope it's
government.
not.
I believe it was,
But it probably
in
is.
that case.
I-
Now,
I think it's the same system, but it probably isn't the same like government person or something. I don't know.
that's a good question.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't know.
Because when I
it's an
saw
interesting
I saw a
question.
screenshot that somebody sent of their phone, and it looked the exact same thing what we would have gotten as an Amber Alert or like, So I think it's the same. Like it's probably the interface that the government has into the carriers,
Yeah,
so they can send out that message.
it's probably
But-
the same interface. Um, the stories on Reddit were good. Of what did you do when you thought you had an hour left to live, and those were some good stories. But one person, apparently the Clintons, or at least some of their family, were on the island, and the Secret Service were fully suited up in biohazard weapon. So even people at government levels did not know this was a false alarm.
Wow.
Like what it really was, one person did something dumb and they clicked a box.
That's crazy.
It's so surprising that there wasn't a "Are you sure you want to do this?" prompt.
It's surprising, and at the same time going, well, maybe not that surprising. So there is that. I don't know. It's one of those things that we couldn't resist having that as an article. I don't know. Bad UI design causes problems. I've always liked this. I can't remember whose law, Gray's law, I think it is. Sufficiently advanced incompetence is indistinguishable from malice. Like,
Right.
I said that when we read the article on our news thing that we do, and I'm like, yeah, it's a mess. Fun news. VirtualBox is getting integrated into the kernel. The open source guest editions have kernel support native. So I still use VirtualBox a lot to run stuff, and I love the project, and I'm happy to see that the kernel people are actually going to be adopting some of the basic support right into it. So you can still update to the further newer versions because the kernel version may not be as new, but at least you have the base level support built right into the kernel now. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really handy for users that are thinking about using Linux, because
yeah.
then it just all of the VirtualBox hardware will just automatically work. You don't have to install the guest
Right.
editions to get the hardware.
Which,
working.
if you're new to Linux, this is something, and I admit myself, sometimes because I forget how to mount ISOs, that can be a challenge. So I'm like, oh yeah, hold on, what's the command again? And I have to think about it because I don't do it very often when I'm installing guest editions for things. But yeah, for a new user, they're like,
it's an extra hoop to jump through. It's harder. So this makes the whole process a lot easier for the end user, and I'm all for that.
Yep. That's something that someone commented, because I pointed to, like, the Pi-hole has a very automagical curl script. You just curl, push it to bash, and automatically sets it up. I think that's cool. And some people are like, oh, no, as a sysadmin, I don't like that. And I'm like, no, I do. I see more people using it. And then because it's open source, they have the ability to take it apart. I know there'll be those who will just run it blindly and put their hands in a trust of a script they found on the internet. But it creates a learning opportunity. You start with running it on a script and you do this. So anything that makes it easier for the user and brings more people to the open source world, I look as a good thing in the big picture.
I agree.
So anyone thinking about building a gaming computer?
Still got one. Works great.
Yeah. Lucky you.
Why is that?
Because you
Oh.
can't build one now. Not if you want a graphics card, anyways. So the shortage isn't just real, it's insane right now. You can't even buy it. Apparently, some of the graphics cards are going for triple the price. I'm thinking about what I have to sell. I'm looking around going, can I sell something on eBay? They're going for a fortune right now.
This
Holy
is going for cryptocurrency mining.
Yes,
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh.
It's creating like a massive black hole of this. And because we're looking at some of the sponsors, and we can't even review video cards because there's no point. They can't make them at the rate they're being bought. And they listed MSRP. I remember one of them, like, the MSRP was supposed to be $599. You're lucky you can find it for $1,500. I mean,
Wow.
you can't build a gaming computer right now.
This is the reason we can't have nice things
You
either.
Yeah.
Phil, you can make a little cash off your machine right now, and then in
Hey, I
6
guess
months
so.
rebuild it with all the money you get right now.
Yeah, I know. If my kids didn't use the gaming machine, I'd sell it now. It's worth more than when we built it several months ago.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about that. Like, I can actually sell my high-end 1080 graphics card for more than I paid for it. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. They're going for, I should look on eBay, wonder what they're going for, but just like cryptocurrency is crazy high, so are all the video cards related to it. So that's interesting. I guess
Yeah.
if you buy like some of the dedicated ASIC miners, the waiting list is crazy for those too. So
Yeah, because that's the only way to mine now. Otherwise it's not worth it unless you have some all this high end hardware.
Well, people are buying the gaming cards to do it because they can't get the ASIC ones. ASIC ones would be more efficient, but the gaming cards are more available. Well, used to be before
Used to be.
before this latest rush. So
I have heard that certain chains or cryptocurrency methods are uh, able to detect the type of miner. So ASICs could be blocked in
Yeah.
certain cryptocurrencies, which I thought was interesting.
yeah, there's a lot going on with it, and this is such an early stage in the game. It's all interesting and fascinating, but it all also to me, it really feels wasteful.
It does. It
There's
does
so
indeed.
much heat and wattage going into like we're creating global warming and warming up the planet, trying to mine invisible coins.
But when they're
Thanks,
worth
humans.
6,000 a piece, doesn't it come down to 6,000 a piece or something?
Oh no, it hit 18,000. So
And then it took a sharp tank. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
yeah, it took a sharp tank. We're down to 12,000 right now.
Oh,
So I mean, it's still pretty lucrative to do this. Well, there's not a lot of money in it. That used to be. We're not going to get too off topic on that, but it's a mess, and it's one of those humans not doing things well in the big picture of it. I love the concept of blockchain, but all the madness around it right now is just, yeah. Let's talk about something better, like
Well,
Barcelona. You had an article
yeah.
on that.
yeah. So, but in the another city turns Microsoft down kind of thing,
Aw.
that Barcelona is dumping Windows and Office and moving to Linux. They are so they're going with Ubuntu, but it's not just stock Ubuntu. They're going to be developing a couple, or they're hiring a couple developers to go through and do some customizations and getting things working to work along with what they currently have. So yeah, so they're working on that, moving forward, and this comes in the midst of what an article about 6 months ago saying Munich is dumping Linux to go back
Yes.
to Microsoft.
Boy, there's a lot of controversy around the Munich dump because apparently some higher ups wanted their Outlook, and I gotta admit I don't understand. So I was never a fan
It's
of Outlook.
always the email client that decides
Yeah,
these things.
Mhm.
I think it's ridiculous.
yeah. Microsoft will never release Outlook on a Linux platform because it would be the end of them. That is like the number one user complaint between, well, I guess Excel to some extent, but Outlook is like a massive hang up for people switching to anything. They're like, oh, I love my Outlook, and I'm like, why? I loathe the program.
When you start chaining yourself to that program, then you're beholden to Microsoft.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
at my work we've gone all in. We're doing the Office 360 and the everything's integrated. So we have on-prem and integrated systems with that and Skype. And when you invest the money to make it all work together, it works good. But can't you invest the money and then invest licensing money into maybe some local developers that can make other solutions work just as well?
I really don't see the appeal because we're working with another company. We're helping them migrate off of Outlook. They're finally sick of all the crashing because they have the volume of email they have, and they've come over to the Google side and they're like, wow. This is really neat. I'm like, yeah. They can't believe how well it works with their phone, with their any browser, without having to load any apps on their computer. They just log into Gmail and they're able to get all their email and find things immediately and share them. And I didn't know because I hadn't used it in a while, but I didn't realize how well updated the task system is in Gmail, the way it relates to email. So like this is so superior to Outlook. And this is a person who used Outlook ever since they've inception of their business in the 90s. They've used it always. And they're switching off of it and they're like, I feel like I'm seeing the light. So because they've spent too much time on Microsoft support dealing with it because they have like thousands of emails with attachments and Outlook just even with Office 365 just goes, I think you have too much. And Microsoft's last answer was, you need a faster computer. He's like, I have 16 gigs of RAM and a new i7. I said, once they said I need a faster computer, I'm like, to handle my emails.
Right.
I do CAD design and it works fine. But
Well-
email, too much?
We used to have a rule at the hospital that if you had over 1,000 emails in your inbox, then you had to clean it out, just in one folder of your inbox. And that's what causes it to run slow.
It is.
So if you cleaned out your email and put it into an archive folder or something instead, then that would probably help out. But
Yeah, but I look at, I have 50,000 emails and that I kept. This is after I purged. and I can find any of them immediately. Matter of fact, I found that answer that quickly by clicking on it. Well, if you heard the click on the microphone, like once you're used to being able, the way Google indexes things, I have clients with 300,000 emails are able to find things like in an immediate fashion.
Yeah. I would say that the Gmail indexing is much better than.
Oh yeah, even the online version of
Outlook.
Outlook is just.
I like the way you can filter and create separate tags for all your emails. That's how I keep track of things in my day to day.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic getting to set all those different colors. Super useful feature. I I've had a user from a previous job many years ago. We implemented that same sort of rule. You can only have so many emails in your inbox. So this person got clever and created archival in the recycling bin. And so monthly, when the recycling bin purge ran, it would delete all of this guy's archived emails. And hey, my emails are gone. Well, okay, we have this rule that you know about. You signed off on this computer, this account, and then yeah, but where's my archive? You mean the trash? And that was fun explaining the trash to a user.
Yeah. And I think that's where it lends itself better to the user experience, because they don't have to delete things. They can start creating rules and even post after. We uploaded for one client 38 gigs of email. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. It was so much email. We uploaded it off their Exchange server, which was just crashing all over itself. And it was a pretty beefy machine. And they are so happy they can find everything. They do city work, and they are in city meetings. This was their aha moment. They're able to find an email sent to them during a city council meeting when they're accused of something, and they can prove they have the email that proves them right. And they can do it on their phone in
That's
an
fantastic.
instant. And he said, this is like amazing to us. Like, we could never do this with our Exchange server, and the other people are pitching us Office 365, but we have a feeling it wouldn't do it either. I'm like, it wouldn't, not at the speed Google can. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, anyways, enough waxing poetically about Google.
Yeah, and more on switching Linux distros. Well, this
Or
is
city switching.
Linux. Well, but this is Linux to Linux. Google is switching from Ubuntu.
Yes.
So they had
to Debian.
to G Linux. Yep, they're calling it G Linux, but it's Debian as the base. And the biggest difference is Ubuntu is so Google's Ubuntu. They didn't push their changes upstream, so they didn't give it back.
Oh,
with Ubuntu, that's what I was reading in the article. But with G Linux, they're going to take Debian. They're going to, whatever changes they make, they're going to push it upstream back to Debian. So
I like that.
Yeah,
because that upstream back is huge. That's like that mentioned. That's one of my likes for Pfsense is their upstream back contributions to the code. So
that is why we can have nice things.
That is why we have nice things.
Right. Well, and so, but the reason they didn't really push it upstream is because they had signed on as a Canonical customer, not as a open source project. So they were a full on Canonical customer with support and everything from Canonical, and that's where they're moving away from that to this G Linux with Debian.
Oh, that's a shame. That'd mean less money for Canonical.
Right.
Anyways, something related to the Barcelona is publiccode.eu, and it's kind of the basis for all this. If everyone wants to do any more reading, just in general, but it's public money, public code, something near and dear to all of our open source hearts. So that's something if you ever want to help support that project. I feel though Europe is further ahead than us on that concept because our government. Well, if they ever turn back on, when they reboot, they'll be buying from Microsoft again. I'm sure.
I'm sure they will be. No, I really like this idea of the public money for public code.
Yeah.
Because it does. You're paying for licensing, so why wouldn't one see? There's two cities right next to us, Lincoln Park and Allen Park. Can't they use the same system? But here, and so in the model that most are doing it is Lincoln Park has to buy and license the same program to do taxes or water billing, and Allen Park has to go through the whole process and do it the same, but if it was like an open source project,
It's a mess because I dealt directly working with the cities, and it's crazy. They pay a fortune in licensing fees, and I'm like, every city's paying this and dealing with all this. And I'm like, they have these water meters, and they put it out for bid, and I'm like, why is there competition between cities to buy water meter reading equipment that interfaces with software and everything else? I'm like, this is a common thing all cities. Let's just develop the code once and distribute it, because it's not about being a profit center. It's government. They should govern, not make a bunch of money and then spend a bunch of money on all this other stuff. It's just a crappy mess.
But my thing is that if they come back saying, well, we don't have the money to pay a developer to do that, it's like, well, they're paying this much in licensing fees. Instead of license it, pay the developer to do it.
Exactly. And code once, and every city uses the same thing. So
exactly.
There's a similar style project out of the Linux Foundation called the Civil Infrastructure Platform. It's an open source base layer of industrial grade software to enable the use and implementation of software building blocks for civil infrastructure. Now, that's a little confusing to me, but maybe there is a civil engineer out there or some other governmental worker that might want to check that out.
Yeah, check that out.
yeah, we covered before. There's a couple different projects I know that they've been trying to. There's an open government. There's a I have to dig through it. We had a episode that we covered a lot of it. It was like a year ago, I think. But anyway, it's a great topic.
Yes.
Open source government. All right, what else we got here? We have Privacy OS, open source mobile OS. That's kind of a neat concept. I wonder about that because the violation of my privacy is why my phone works so well. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah.
I surrender where I'm at to Google and subsequently my wife. You work that in there somewhere.
Right.
But by doing so, I get cool features like I can say, find me food near me, and it does that. So while I get the premise of a privacy phone, the trade for my privacy is, but the trade is I get to know cool things and get reviews, and my phone spies on me. But the other side of that is we turn our phones off because I'm aware that this is a tracking, listening, omnipresent device. But by turning it off, it becomes not. Or if I leave it on a table in the other room, I'm in the other room. And if I go somewhere and I don't want it, or I don't want to be tracked, you leave the device elsewhere.
Right. Yep. So the guy that originally created Mandrake Linux, his name's Gal Duvall. He is creating this privacy Linux. And what is he calling it? There's a Kickstarter campaign. And at the date of this article, which was the 5th, it said they had 2 weeks left. So there's probably just a few days left now on it. And so he wants to have full EO lineage. Is that what it's called? Or Lineage OS. So the fork of ELO is Lineage OS. So it's a full-on Linux that can run on a phone.
Well, the phones are so powerful now. When I look at how much, I have 128 gigs of storage here on my phone. You get 8 gigs of RAM on these high-speed processors. You could probably make the case to run multiple operating systems and a hypervisor on it. So when I want to surrender my privacy, I spin up the Google VM and I get all the cool features, but I sacrifice privacy. But then when I need to be off the grid, I just run a solid Linux one and I still can use it as a phone.
Interesting. That would be like Mobile Cubes OS.
Mobile Cubes OS. There's a use case for this.
At the expense of all of your battery.
Yeah, exactly.
But the batteries are amazing now. So
this is true. Have several.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we'll devise all this.
I have a Chromecast at home, and for the last like 3 years, why am I always having problems with my wireless?
Yes.
I think I've gone through 3 different routers. I've had a Linksys and I've had
you got a Unify now.
Yeah, I have a Unify now and I don't have problems magically. Well, I think the Unify is beefy enough. It's not it's not robbing it. But this article I found says Google Chromecast is clobbering Wi-Fi connections. And so what it does is it uses MDNS to as a keep alive, saying, "Hey, I'm here, and that's how your phone, when you're connected to the same Wi-Fi, your phone finds it and you can cast stuff to it
Mhm.
as MDNS. And it's supposed to be every 20 seconds. It says, "Hey, I'm here," and the 26 like, "Hey, I'm here." Well,
But
yeah, the problem with it is, and this is in the coding of Chromecast, when it goes asleep, it sends out 100,000 packets. It says within a short amount of time. I don't know what their timing was. So even within 30 seconds, 100,000 packets is killing Wi-Fi routers.
yes, TP-Link has a breakdown of it, and if you're not familiar with TP-Link, they're a weird partner for Google because they make the $29 cheap routers that we sell
Mhm.
all the time. You see them, they're the inexpensive ones, and they made the Google Home one. They're the hardware vendor for Google, so they actually have a lot of intimate knowledge of Google. So they actually have a detailed breakdown on how it works and how it screws up. And I believe my assessment would probably be that they're working with Google because apparently it even breaks the Google Home one occasionally.
Yeah.
And it's a concert of problems because it's also when the phone gets on there. If you have like a Nexus phone, which explains my Nexus 6P disconnect problems, because it would also start talking to all the Google Cast and just flood it with packets.
It's always
Mm.
fun when you DOS your own stuff.
Right.
Yeah, essentially, it's a LAN DDoS there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely a weird problem that I don't know why it took so long to notice, but I guess it's because it's a consumer facing product, so none ever really looked at it.
Right. So yeah. So TP-Link has fixed it on their routers to block,
Yep.
or to block, I guess, the frequency of it sending it out. And then I've heard Linksys hasn't, or they've posted the update, and Netgear has acknowledged it, but they don't have one in production yet. But there's an update to it that Google now has new firmware for
Yeah.
their Chromecast that's supposed to fix it.
Yeah, my Chromecast rebooted and they seem to be happy. We have several Chromecasts at my house. Matter of fact, we just switched to the Google Chromecast Ultra, which is their 4K version that works over hardline. So yeah, that's because I got a new TV. And
that takes 4K.
that takes 4K. And I tried using the smart function on the TV. I loathe it. You know, you have to agree to advertising as part of the agreement when you boot up a smart TV.
Thank you.
So
Right.
Tom instead installed a Chromecast because I'm not. Yeah, I could go on an entire babbling rant about why there's the dumb problems I had with the smart TV stuff. So
Yeah, I have a Chromecast Audio, which
Those are
is pretty
cool.
cool. Yeah, I like
those are
that.
neat.
All it is this little round hockey puck thing. It's smaller than a hockey puck, and it has power coming in one side and a headphone jack the other.
Yep.
So you plug a headphone jack into a stereo, then everything you would have done on your Chromecast, but audio only, you can send to a nice stereo and listen. So if I'm listening to a podcast or Pandora, I can send it to that and listen to it on a really nice stereo.
Well, I actually use my Chromecast for that, even the Google Ultra one, because that's actually one of the reasons I need it. The smart TV does not want to output sound back to my stereo, and I have a THX 5.1 stereo, so 7.2 stereo system. So I actually have the Chromecast plugged in, but because it's plugged into my stereo receiver, I don't need to turn my TV on. I just turn stereo on and it works the same. I just send whatever audio I want to it, and my TV doesn't need to be on.
Your receiver does the
Receiver's doing all that.
HDMI
Yep.
switching. Yeah.
Yep. So it works really well for that. So we listen to music at the house all the time, and the kids listen to it at concert level volumes because why not?
Right.
A long time ago, we had a Raspberry Pi running a piece of software called Volumio, so we could turn on our stereo, connect to the software with our phones, and just everyone puts on whatever song they want, and it goes into a playlist that's shared with everybody. So makes parties pretty fun. Everybody gets to pick their own song.
That's pretty cool.
Well, that is fun.
You can do that. The Google Play lets you queue stuff now too, or you can queue YouTube, and even multiple people at the same time will work on that. So
Yeah, so you can make like a public or with your friends have a public
Yep.
queue and then have everybody contribute. That's fun.
It's called guest mode on a Chromecast. So if you want someone to come over to your house but not be attached to your Wi-Fi network, they actually use turn on guest mode, and they can connect to your Chromecast and add things to the queue without being on your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, the
So-
fix to that is have a guest Wi-Fi and have your Chromecast connect to that.
Well, you should have a separate Wi-Fi for your Internet of Insecure Things.
Yeah.
We have one here at the
I'm
office.
trying to figure out how to get that to work with Chromecast, and maybe this is it. Right in this article, make sure MDNS sends to all networks, and then I can connect to it.
You have to open up ports between them to make it wants to be
Yeah.
on the same local LAN because of the protocols it uses. I'm not sure there's any easy way to have.
I think MDNS is a broadcast, right? And
Probably.
So you'd have to do some kind of like MDNS proxying to send it across, and
Yeah.
they get complicated.
Yeah. Bunch of firewall rules.
Yeah.
Anyways, so upcoming free webinars from the Linux Foundation.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
They so if you're interested in learning more about Linux stuff, then the Linux Foundation is giving out free webinars.
And one of them is on blockchain.
Yeah.
Which-
So I just wanted to make sure this link is out there that people can and see it and sign up for it. The next one is February 13th. So they're all enough in the future that everybody. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's February 13th is
Yep.
the next one.
Yep. 2018. Open source networking harmonization, bringing harmony to the open source network.
Yeah.
Looks like they're going to cover a few different fun projects. I thought it said Fido at first. I'm like, you're bringing Fido back?
So that's interesting. What else do I have on?
I think we've reached the bottom of the news.
Yeah. All right. So I better talk about the news. Tom, did you get a chance?
Yeah, I brought those couple articles I had about the Linux kernel and stuff like that. TLS, I'm trying to think. Those are the major ones that I seen. Other than more and more speculation around the meltdown stuff, I figured that topic's been beat to death a little bit. And we're seeing stuff come out. We're seeing optimizations to the kernel come out. It's a slow and arduous process. We'll get more efficient over time. Data centers, some of the gaming places commented. I think it was the Fortnite servers. They showed the performance change before and after applying patches.
I think it was something like 25% increased CPU usage for their use case. But again, the disclosure window was ridiculous, so these patches had to come out.
Yeah. So, and all the proofs of concept are coming out as well. So someone found out it's even worse than they thought. So when they did it, they said they couldn't believe the amount of data. They thought they were only going to be able to slowly get some data over time. They were shocked at what level of data they were able to pull using this. I can't remember the name of security researcher, but if you go through the show notes of the latest episode of Security Now, they cover that in depth. Matter of fact, they have an entire very in-depth breakdown of how the process works, how the Spectre Meltdown works, and lots of links to security people, which maybe by now have released some of it. Because when all the patches are out, they were going to release their research so you can do your own proof of concept and do it. So
I am so glad that this is in the open source sphere so that everybody who uses this or is curious about it can actually look it up. Imagine if this was some sort of closed source.
Oh, I know.
thing. Yeah.
I know.
Oh no. The recorder died.
Oh.
But we have the YouTube back up.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'm pulling it from YouTube then.
yeah.
That's all right. Was the battery low?
Yeah, I guess so. It's those funny battery or your rechargeable batteries weren't.
You know, we've been using them since last month. I haven't charged them in a while.
Yeah. All right. Well, it'll be good up to a certain point, and then you'll have to go move over to the YouTube.
Well, it means it's probably time to wrap up the show.
I have been checking on it because I did see it was kind of low. So
Oh.
it's only been
There's a
in the last
pile
5
of batteries
minutes.
like 2 feet away.
Oh man.
Because everything
Sorry.
takes those. It's in the microphones. It's in all my stuff. So, anyways,
Yeah. All right. Well, we've come to the end.
We got music?
Phil, I don't know if did you have any articles you want to talk about?
Oh.
I've thrown mine in.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Yeah. So we've come to the end, and I do have some music, but let's music clip.
The outgoing music for this week's show.
The outgoing music. So in the idea of keeping the mindset of our show title is Shutdown-R. The song is called Shutdown System. It's by Peo, P-E-Y-O, and I found it on Jamando. So here we go.
This song will automatically shut down the system after playing. This song will automatically shut down the system after playing.
All right. Well, for more of a instrumental based kind of music, I think that's not bad. I think it's pretty cool. I normally don't listen to that kind of thing, but I like it. All right. Well, let me stop that. If you want to listen to the full version of that, we'll have it on the edited show at smlr.us. All right. Without further ado, I guess we've come to the end of the show.
Yes, we have. Now we can do a shutdown -8 show.
Right. Yeah, and I made sure I stopped the song so that it didn't shut down my system. No. Anyway, so you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 264. Shutdown -R government.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Tony Bemis.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
Say, see you next time.
The outgoing.
Oh, wrong sound bite.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-7009. I'm John Miller. If you don't like it, you can
Bite my 8-bit metal ass. That's bite with a Y.
All right. So we've come to the end. We're going to get going, YouTube listeners. We're not going to be doing a second show right now. And we will see you next time. All right. Say goodbye to everybody. We have actually 4 people still on right now.
Ooh, hey,
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Send us an email. Let us know that you guys enjoy watching us live.